It's a new year, a brand new me, a brand new us, Mitchell Port Unleashed podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'm joined by my guest,
Kayla Girgen.
Kayla. How's it going? How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Well, holiday season, and let's get right into it. I feel like we're here to talk about health and fitness.
Yes.
Let's
I feel
talk
like that
about
had a
it.
question mark. Yes. I feel like
Yeah.
it's very fitting for this time of year. Like you said, new year, new me, new you. Everybody's motivation is super high. And then come, the end of the week and then it'll be gone.
So let's talk about. I know about rucking because it's a rugby word, but speak about rucking in the fitness lifestyle. What is that about?
Yes. So a ruck in rugby is where they're battling for the ball, right? This is completely different. So rucking is essentially grabbing a backpack, throwing some weight in, going for a walk. And you get a ton of health benefits from it. It originally really started in the military, so it's a way for soldiers to train. But I think where I see a difference in the military versus like civilian life. In the military, you see people carrying their body weight on their back essentially. Whereas now in health and fitness, it's, maybe 10 to 30 pounds, depending on fitness level, age, really where you're starting at. So my goal was really to bring, I guess, rucking to the people in a more approachable way, because otherwise when you think of rucking in terms of the military, I think it can be very intimidating.
So when you speak from your point of view, why did you come up with this concept idea to really position this out to, let's say, both of our audiences and the ones that want to know the things with it?
Yeah, I would say I actually learned about rucking from Michael Easter. So if you've heard of Crisis or read that book, he talks a little bit about rucking in there. And that's really what kind of got me started. I was like, well, this sounds cool. I can throw some weight in a backpack, get outside and go for a walk and really just kind of multitask. I guess something I was already doing. It's like I can actually get a solid workout. And it was something that I think just for me, it had profound effects that I really wasn't expecting on my mental health. So I really discovered rucking mid-pandemic, and it was something that when we're all feeling cooped up, it got me outside, it got me out of my head, and I feel like just that the mental component is really what had me coming back. So initially starting for some of those physical benefits, and then really I think hanging around because of some of those mental benefits that I experienced.
I love that you say that. So for me, when I think of the physical, what about the mental? Because I feel like that's really a big part coming out of the holidays. You have American Thanksgiving, you have Black Friday shopping, you have Christmas. Now, Boxing Day over here is big over here in Canada. New Year's Eve. Now you're in a new year. How do we balance that with our mental?
Yeah. And I think that's the big challenge, right? Because you have so much motivation, and I think we always rely on that to get us started, and I think that's fine, but it's what's going to really keep you going. So I know one thing that I always one mindset shift I like to do with a lot of my clients is, instead of focusing on goals, let's focus on habits, because I think essentially it's nice to have goals to help maybe point you in the right direction, but it's those habits that keep you going when motivation isn't always there. And I think those just give you those little anchors to help your mindset. For me, that looked like rucking, because I just feel like I'm a better person when I do it. I get outside, I clear my head, I show up better in, all parts of life. Plus it feels like when we do something hard, it feels like you accomplish something. And I think that in itself can be really invigorating. And I feel like it can also be very contagious when you're, doing it maybe by yourself. Or one thing that I love about rucking is I can, do it with myself, or I can also get a group together and really make it a social movement too, which I think can help with just fostering that connection again, which I think some of us maybe have lost after being cooped up and now maybe craving that a little bit more.
What would you say, and I'm going to look in the camera and I say this, top 3 goals we need when it comes down to improving our health and fitness inside of the actual ruck as well?
Okay. Well, I feel like some of these might apply to like whole life things. We talk about consistency a lot, but I like to argue that maybe it's flexibility. So giving yourself some, maybe some measures, but also allowing yourself to, not do something perfect. So one example, like, it being the beginning of January. And again, that motivation's there. So we set these really lofty goals. And a lot of times I'm like pulling people backwards. Like, let's think of it as like a good, better, best system. So what's something you can do on your worst days? What's something that, is maybe your average that you're aiming for? And then, what's that best thing? So thinking about framing, whether it's a nutrition change or if it's some sort of, maybe it's a step goal. So to give you an example, maybe a good is just a walk around the block. Maybe the better is, a 1 mile ruck, and then best is 10,000 steps, whatever that might look like, because I feel like that lets you accomplish the thing that you're after without like checking, okay, I'm going to do 2 a days, 60 minutes, 2 times a day in the gym. You miss day one, and then all of a sudden you're just like back to square one, maybe worse off than what you started, and motivation is just really low. So to summarize that for one point, I would say flexibility, especially when it comes to that goal setting, because I think that was one thing myself I just really struggled with, was that all or nothing thinking. And, I think of a lot of the goals that I hear, like, I'm not going to do sugar for 30 days in January. And then what happens like Feb 1? It is like sugar binge, right? It's like ice cream and Sour Patch Kids, and you just really go from 0 to 60 really quick. So giving yourself a little bit of grace and flexibility there.
So I came from the health and fitness department as well. Back in, geez, when have I retired myself? Like Jordan, 2020. 2020 is when I stopped being a trainer because the whole world got flipped on its axis. So my question to you would be is speak to the importance of like it's okay to have a cheat meal, not like a whole like cheat week or cheat month. 'Cause I know some people like to celebrate like birthday months for like a whole entire month. You know what I mean? But speak to the importance of like how can we justify like having that cheat meal and like really incorporating it into our day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I feel like food is entwined in everything that we do. It's just such a big part of life. And especially coming off the holidays, like you have family traditions or cookie baking and all of that. So I think it's really important to have, again, that flexibility to have something like a cheat day. But like you said, it's when, that turns into a cheat week, a cheat month. And then, 3 months later, you're just, again, like worse off than where you started. But I will say, from a dietitian perspective, I see a lot of times where people are just like the natural instinct is to restrict, like I'm going to cut this out or just really get aggressive. Where if you're incorporating some of those things, I think that maybe takes some of that temptation away. So thinking about having a meal to look forward to, whatever that might be for you, or, not cutting out, sugar entirely, for example, it's like strategically putting in that into your day. I feel like takes some of the power away, because once you give something up, then what do you think about? It's just like your brain is saturated with just want, I feel like, for that thing.
And it's funny that you say that because so many folks are like, no sugar, no sugar, no sugar. And you're like, wait, time out. You have to have a little bit of sugar, like the good sugar, like fruits has sugar in it. Some vegetables will have a little bit of sugar. We're not talking about the overconsumption of like the candy and the pop and the chips and whatever else, the pastries after the holiday season and things like that. It's good. It's tasty. Trust me, it's so good. But you gotta like know how to scale it back when you're ready, folks. So speak on that, like, because I feel like some folks go overboard starting the beginning of the year, no sugar, and then they just crash out. Speak on that.
Yeah, I think of a quote by Lane Norton, and he talks about there's no solutions, only trade-offs. So I think whatever that decision is, there's always going to be some sort of trade-off. So one example, again, going back to this like no sugar idea, is if you're planning to do, Whole 30 or only eat whole minimally processed foods for the month, the trade-off of that is like that's going to require a monumental amount of prep. And I think that's just maybe not realistic for a lot of people. And again, we kind of swing that pendulum from one side to the other. One tool I think that I really love to use is a CGM. or like continuous glucose monitors. And I feel like that has been a really big game changer for really helping battle that all or nothing thinking, because you're able to do things like have a cheat meal, but I think approach it with a little bit of strategy where it's not sending you into this spiral where, now it throws the whole rest of the week off, for example.
You went there with you said it was CGM, correct?
Yes.
So with a CGM, speak to that real quick, because I
Yeah.
feel like some of the audience may have just got into like, wait, what did she just say there? Is that an acronym? Where can I find it? Do I got to chat GPT it? Do I got to Google it? So speak to that. What is that exactly?
Yeah, so CGM is continuous glucose monitoring. So a lot of times it looks like a little sensor on the back of your arm, and it basically is taking your blood sugar in real time and it translates it to an app on your phone. So you might see there's a lot of companies out there like NutriSense and Levels, and especially like thinking about health in the new year, I feel like, maybe it's shown up in your feed, or maybe it will now since everything's listening. But what you'll notice a lot of times is when your blood sugar is like spiking and crashing and spiking and crashing, a lot of times your energy tends to follow that. Your mood is also following, craving. So if you feel like you really struggle for maybe making it more than a couple hours without eating, or you get hangry, or maybe you experience like joint pain or just like low motivation, I think a lot of that in some sense can be tied back to your blood sugar. So what I find is just not even really changing what you eat, but changing how. So thinking about even the order in which you eat your food, or not having carbs all by themselves, like thinking about just that sugar, like pairing it up with something that can make a monumental difference on your blood sugar, which I think ultimately makes you feel better. And then that domino effect gives you a ton of things, like more energy to get the workout in, and you sleep better and your mood is better, and really just has, again, that ripple effect on all aspects of health.
Love it, love it, love it. So much information to change the audience's situation. And I think what folks do is they get into these videos on social media. It could be TikTok, it could be Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and they see one thing and they take it and then they run with it, right? And they're like, well, this person told me to do this, but then this person's trying to tell me to do that. Like, what do we go by? You know what I mean? And it can become it can be such a horrific experience. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of mindsets out there. And it's not to call anybody out or to throw shade. It's just, I think with the overconsumption of what we're starting to see and listen to, we don't know right places to go to get a lot of that information. And I feel like it's podcasts like this that are not going to mislead you, but they're going to inform you with all the right information and ingredients.
For sure. Yeah. And I think, like you said, that's one of the things that sent me to be a dietitian, is because when you start to Google how to lose weight or whatever your search query might be, you get so much information and so much conflicting information. And my goal was just to see like, okay, I'm going to sort this all out. And now I feel like I still, am figuring it all out, because there is no like one size fits all. And I think that's part of it too, because people are very like tribalistic about nutrition. It's like we have keto and carnivore and vegan and raw vegan, and we just have these extremes. And what works for one person, I think, is certainly, not what works for everybody.
So, yeah, let's address the elephant in the room a little bit, because you're a dietitian, right? Is a lot of these fads that we see, a lot of folks want to run with them. And then they don't realize once you completely get off of it, what's going to happen. And you go back eating your same way, you're going to put on the weight or put on all these different things that are going to happen within your own ecosystem. So speak to that. Like, should the normal man or woman look to fad diets for immediate success? Yes or no?
If you want something that's not going to stick, sure. Like, I feel like as cliche as it is the best diet is the one that you stick to. And if you're able to find whatever that looks like for you, oftentimes I feel like what I find with my clients, it's like I'm meeting them where they're at. We're changing, maybe a couple things to help get some momentum. So I try to find the low-hanging fruit. Like, what are the things that we can change that are really going to help give you the most leverage and get some of that momentum going? But oftentimes, like you said, these fad diets, they're so extreme. So whether that's super low calorie or, not having anything but grass-fed beef and, touch your lips, like that is just, it's tough. And then especially thinking about all the temptation, we just came out of the holidays, so you think you're in the clear, but oftentimes like food again is just really woven into our lives. So it's just hard to stick with something long term if it is so definitive and restrictive.
But I feel like what we have to do, stop going by the extreme and start like maybe just slowly welcoming things in, see how it works for us, and then take it away if it comes down to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly the mentality that I like too. It's like focusing on what are the things we can add instead of remove. So maybe it's still doing chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, but I'm going to throw in, a side of broccoli with it or whatever that might be.
Wait. That's wild.
Yeah.
So chicken nuggets, macaroni with broccoli?
Yeah, you've got all the food groups there, right? You've got protein, you've got some sort of carb, and yeah, you got your veg, so.
I guess. I don't know if I'm doing the broccoli. I think the broccoli might have to go. Broccoli got to be paired with maybe like a steak, I think, first thing for me.
Right.
But like chicken nuggets, because it's like you have a nugget that's already breaded and you have the macaroni and cheese.
It's certainly not like, but I'm thinking of the mom or dad that's listening and probably, okay, well, I'm just going to eat my kids' leftovers. Like, what can we add to it to balance it out? That's baby steps. So this is maybe like the entry point. This is the on-ramp for some bigger habits. Yeah.
I love that. So let's go back to the rucking conversation, because I think like for myself, anyone can do it, but I feel like how do we physically set ourselves up for the success? Because we can't just say, let's throw on this backpack. I'm about to load up 100 pounds and just call it a day. You may get
please
injured.
Don't.
So let's speak to that. What's your take on like how to welcome in the rucking in the proper way and things like that?
Yeah, I would say for anyone, like walking is always a good first step. Like if you are relatively sedentary, like maybe it just starts with getting some steps under your feet. And then once you feel like you've got those mechanics, you're finding a backpack. For most people, usually they can start with 10 to 20 pounds. I would say for women, usually 10 to 15. Men, maybe that's 10 to 20, depending on your fitness level. Like you said, I love this because it's for, any age, any fitness level. It's low impact, so it's very nice on your joints. But I would say maybe those first few rucks, keeping it to no more than a mile or two, depending again where your fitness level is really at. And maybe that looks like 2, maybe 3 times a week to start, and then kind of slowly increasing weight. So if you feel like you get back from a ruck and you're like, okay, I felt it, but I feel like I could do more, then maybe adding in 10% intervals. So maybe giving yourself, again, a couple weeks to adjust to that, because I know one thing that I personally notice is even though the weight didn't feel like a lot, it's going to straighten you out. So one thing about rucking that is nice, especially for how we're seated and in front of screens all day, when you're wearing a backpack with some weight, it does pull your shoulders back and you get some great posture benefits. And that alone, just getting straightened out, can have some, maybe uncomfy symptoms at first. So for me, I had this little pinch in my shoulder, and then just as I built up strength and improved my posture, that went away within, maybe 4 or 6 weeks or so.
Is this the reason why I see a lot of folks now with backpacks at the gym, walking on an incline? Is that what they're doing?
Weighted vests is one thing too. So I see a lot of maybe more for women. I do see some men they more look like the Kevlar vests, but I see a lot of men sporting those and a lot of women doing weighted vests. But yes, you're seeing people at the gym with the ruck on, that can certainly and you said on the stair stepper, or
they're not on the.
Okay.
I haven't seen stair stepper yet. Because the stair stepper is, listen,
that's not
folks,
hard enough.
The stair stepper is its own beast, especially when you're level 7, 8, 9, and I see folks literally 45 minutes still level 10, 11. Trust me, I know the levels, because you can see how quick they're going. You're you're just killing that thing. Is the Stairmaster mastering you, or you mastering the Stairmaster? Because I'm it's a competition at this point. You know what I mean? But you see it a lot at the gym, and I see folks with the backpacks on and stuff, and I'm I think the question comes down to it, when we're rucking now, what's the weight that we're putting in the backpack? Where do we find the weight from? It could be any type of weight, or What kind of weight can we use?
Yeah, if you're using just a plain old backpack, like you can actually purchase weight plates. It looks like what you'd load a barbell with, the circular plates. Imagine something similar to that, like nice and thin, but more rectangular. So it's just sliding in that interior pocket of a backpack. Like when you get to heavier weights, I would highly recommend something like a specific rucksack, because that's actually going to hold that weight plate nice and tight to your back and high and tight. So you want to have it kind of positioned between your shoulders, kind of up higher, which if you're using just a plain old backpack, sometimes it might sit, depending on the setup, on like your low back, and you certainly don't want that. But that might look like just purchasing weight plates. You could even just get textbooks, like something heavy. I've seen some really creative setups where people are like maybe putting pool noodles or like yoga blocks in the bottom of a backpack and then putting weight, like maybe it's a cinder block or pavers. Like if you really want to go cheap, you can maybe have some filler in the bottom, then have the weight. But I would say the most straightforward way is just to get some textbooks, or if you're, buying something like the cast iron rectangular plates, those are going to be the most convenient in using those.
So I'm gonna tell y'all the cheap setup right now. Maybe go to your parents' house or your grandparents' house. Everybody's got encyclopedias. Borrow some.
Yes, I love this.
Right?
And they're kind of like big and bulky, so it's like you don't need any filler. Because I would say the biggest thing is you want it to be stable. You don't want it to be, rolling around in your backpack either.
No, for sure, because that's going to be an uncomfortable feeling, right?
Right. Yes, and that's how I started. It was essentially a 10-pound dumbbell. I wrapped it in a bath towel and threw it in a backpack. But like you said, all of a sudden you have like these awkward corners like poking you in the back, and I'm like, I need a different setup. And then I upgraded. That made a world of difference, just moving to the weight plates. And then once I got a specific rucksack with like the hip belt and the chest strap, that's when it really got comfortable. I was able to add a lot more weight without it being all awkward and uncomfortable.
So was it the rucking before the dietitian, or was it the dietitian before the rucking?
It was the dietitian before the rucking. It was actually personal training, dietitian, rucking was the order, was the evolution. That is my fitness background.
Really?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So
I love that. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
I basically started, that's how I learned what a dietitian was. I was getting my personal training certification, and I was like, the nutrition piece was really what spoke to me. And I thought maybe as a trainer, I could tell people, exactly what macros and things like that I could do. And then I was like, okay, well, I probably need some extra credentials. And the more I started to dig in, again, that's where I really saw a lot of conflicting information, and kind of rolled up my sleeves and decided I was going to really go all in, and just went back to college for it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So rucking. I'm gonna have to get into this. The only difference is now, and maybe this is a trick question, because depending on where you are in the world, you may not have the hills per se, or say, for instance, could you use this through mountains as well?
Certainly. Yeah, you could do this
Perfect.
anywhere. Like wherever you walk, wherever you run, you can ruck.
Would you say there's more benefits going more uphill, or just staying like kind of flat surface throughout?
Definitely a lot more benefits to incline. However, like if you are going for your first few rucks, I would try to find a flat surface, because there's really 3 levers that you can pull for increasing the intensity. You've got weight. That's the most straightforward. So you add more weight, that's going to increase the difficulty. Then you can also increase speed. So if you feel like it's relatively flat, but you want to change things up, you can go faster or cover more distance in a short amount of time. And then incline. That's really going to be the thing, even more so than weight, that really ramps things up. So try not to change too many variables at once. Like don't throw 30 pounds on and then, find a 40% grade. Probably not a great idea unless you want to get injured, because I think just like anything, the goal is to not get hurt. And there's, a relatively low risk for injury if you are progressing through things slowly. So yes, the incline will certainly make things more intense, but I wouldn't ramp up weight and incline really quickly at the same time.
Okay, perfect. What about footwear? Because I know footwear is always a good thing. It's always a thing. It's always needed. Are we wearing more? Let's see, because we have to carry all the weight on our back. Are we going to be wearing more like running shoes traditionally, like what runners are wearing? or just like any type of just like, oh, I'll just wear flats. I'll wear my Converses and I'll be good.
I love that you brought this up because I think footwear gets missed a lot, and that's really your foundation for anything. I will say that personal preference tends to vary a lot. Personally, I like something with a stiffer bottom, like a hiking boot, for example, something that's got good arch support. And some people like Hoka's, some people like regular training shoes. It might take a little bit of trial and error to see what you like, but I would try to avoid a shoe that's got too much squish. Like when I say that, I think of like some running shoes, for example, like they might have too much cushion for impact where it doesn't give you enough stability with that extra load. So it can vary a little bit. It might, again, take a little bit. Like the trainers you had mentioned, like typically those tend to be a little bit stiffer. I would just maybe see like however your feet are, if you need a little arch support, that can be helpful. I love, like, I have rucking specific shoes if you really want to go all in, and like Go Ruck makes a specific rucking shoe, and that's really nice for like uneven terrain, or it has like your heel sits up a little bit higher, so it positions your foot in a way that takes the impact of walking with weight, off your feet as well.
I love that you say that. So let's talk about progress, because progress is everything, right? We got to have a measuring stick for climbing up the Tetris levels, I like to say. So how do we track one's individual progress and then also spin it into like a group situation? How can we track our progress as a group as well?
I love that. Like, I've never really thought about tracking progress as a group, but I know like my husband and I started a ruck club. So we like to just like get miles in together. I think that's one straightforward way if you're just like racking up mileage. I know there are some rucking specific apps, like Ruckwell is one. One somebody just turned me on to is called Ruck It. And I haven't used this one personally, but sometimes they will actually take like how much weight you're carrying and your mileage and your speed and giving you like a ruck power score. So if you really are into numbers and, motivated by things like badges, something like an app can be really an easy way. Me personally, I'm like, I just like tick marks. Like I have my little Post-it notes starting over with the new year. So I hit over 300 miles last year, but that's just motivating if you like to check boxes and see progress. I would say that's kind of on paper. If you are really getting into it for like, body transformation, I'm always a big fan of taking measurements. If you do something like progress pictures versus something like looking at just the scale, because I see a lot of times where even doing something like rucking, you're essentially getting some cardio, but you're also putting some muscle on a lot of times at the same time. And the scale might not always reflect that. So you might be turning over some fat for muscle, which might be frustrating if you're only looking at the scale. However, a picture or measurements, those can really give you a little bit more data. So something like a body composition scan can be really helpful, especially if you're getting into new, activity, but that can really help give you a breakdown of what's my body fat percentage versus, again, the scale's just not always telling the whole story. So if you're looking from a physical standpoint, I think those can help.
Love that. Behind you, on your right shoulder, behind the right shoulder, I see Ruck Fit. Speak to that real quick. What's Ruck Fit? Let's talk about it.
Yes, so this is my labor of love over the last couple of years. I had actually, once I started rucking, it was something that I started sharing about. And my now agent reached out to me and he's like, hey, we have this book idea. Do you want to write a book about rucking? And I was like, this was not on my, 2025 agenda or 2024 now, but I was like, sure, why not? So essentially, RuckFit was the spawn of that idea. And really, I just talk about all of the benefits of rucking, give you also some, like, walk you right through gear because there's a lot of different ways. We talked about some of those today, whether you're, doing something like a weighted vest or a backpack, weights, take you through all of the gear. There's also training plans and exercises because one thing I love is that your ruck or your weighted pack can essentially be your resistance buddy. So instead of using something like free weights or a barbell, you can get some excellent strength benefits by using your ruck to, do bicep curls or squats or lunges, whatever that looks like. So I recruited my husband. He was my male model and we did a photo shoot and there's some kind of step-by-step things in there. There's training plans, everything from 5K to 25K. being a dietitian, I had to put some nutrition protocols. So I talk a little bit about CGM and blood sugar balance, and then wrap it all up with mindset and motivation and progress tracking and some of those other things that we touched on here.
Love all of that. And the book is going to be out when, by the way? So for the folks that can get it.
Yes, January 6th. We also I'm teaming up with GoRuck to do a challenge in January. So if you're new to rucking or want to build consistency, one thing that's really fun about rucking is essentially patches become a big thing. So a patch, like think of a little Velcro patch, is like your badge of honor that you've accomplished something or, achieved something. Some patches you can only earn, some you can buy. And we are actually doing you buy a patch and you complete your 10 rucks and now you're in our Ruck Fit challenge. So it's a great way to build community, but then also get some consistency with the new year as well.
So when I hear about this rucking now, and I hear about building community, is there going to be maybe down the road forecasting 2026? We look into mid-level of 2026, maybe even shoot for 2027 where this community might start conquering different parts of the world maybe and do a ruck challenge or something maybe in a different part of the world?
This exists already.
Ooh.
Yes. So I mentioned GoRuck. That's actually how they started. So they're a rucking company. They essentially sell all the gear that you can imagine, but they started out doing events. So they have all kinds of challenges. And when I think about my goal with the book was kind of to bring the approachability in, GoRuck really was kind of born from a couple of one of the founders, Jason McCarthy, was special forces in the military and had these, crazy intense challenges. And his wife kind of joined him in that journey too. So they have everything from family fun things to what they call selection as one of their bigger events, where I think, it starts out with 20 to 30 people and you end up with 2 people by the end. I don't know all of the specs, but you can really get a ton of different, there's a lot of different appeal, whether you're in rucking for the fun of it, or if you really want to do something to challenge yourself mentally, physically, there is a ton. So that's just one company. There are other rucking events out there, or even a 5K or a 10K. It doesn't have to be a rucking specific event. I've even rucked 5Ks with friends just for fun. It's I'm not going to run. It's on my reverse bucket list. I'm never maybe going to run again unless unless I really have to, but I love rucking. So we got our rucks and we did this race, and doesn't necessarily have to be rucking specific, but still a fun way to get out there and turn any foot race into a rucking race.
Okay. Because I think about you have run groups and then you have rucking groups now. When you are rucking with a group, is it more isolation, grab our headphones, put our headphones in, but because you're walking and you're pacing, it's more holding conversations in spaces?
It's both. So you can get the solitude of it, which I love. But I think the social component is what I really like. Again, I shared that we have a ruck club. We get together once a month. And the beautiful thing about rucking is everybody can really get the workout that they want. So if you feel like you're concerned about keeping up with the group, then maybe you do a lighter weight. Or if you're hey, the group might slow me down, I'm going to add an extra 10 pounds today. So rucking can really help, I think, equalize so you're able to get the workout that you want, but then also get that community and conversation, because we know from research that when we're moving in the same direction with somebody, it's a great way just to have great connection and conversation. It's a great way if you are maybe asking for a promotion or wanting to talk about something, that's uncomfortable with a spouse or a friend or family member. When you're moving in the same direction, it is very great for, conflict resolution or just, again, connection.
So for you personally, where's that one place you want to go ruck? There's got to be one place in the world. Where would that be that you'd want to ruck?
I've always wanted to go to Banff, to venture into Canada and do Banff. Yes.
Okay.
I haven't been, but I've heard it's just amazing.
Yes. Out west has a lot of mountains, right? So that'd be a fun fact. But here, I'm going to do a side part here to this. If it's Banff, are you going to do it in the spring, the summer, or the winter?
Ooh.
I'm challenging you here.
Fall. That wasn't an option, but could I do fall?
For
Like
for
after
five
a good
hundred for
frost,
five
maybe
hundred
when there's
points.
no bugs. Yes. I would say like maybe after a good frost when there's no bugs. So maybe you get that little crispiness in the morning, but you get some of that color change, and that's what I would vote for. Ideal conditions. Yeah.
Wow, that's fall. That's cool. Because I feel like even in the winter, like right now, there's winter over here as we're doing this. I'll be honest, we're seeing like astronomical cold. Like right now, real time we're doing this, ladies and gentlemen. Prior to the time we're recording this, it is negative 15 degrees Celsius outside. Where you live at? Did you guys get that cold?
Yes, I'm in central Minnesota. The high yesterday, well, this was Fahrenheit. I don't know the exact conversion, but like the high yesterday was 6. I think the low overnight was maybe negative 11.
So you know what I love about podcasting? This is why we do what we do, right? I can right now look into Minnesota on my iPhone, and it shows me from our temperature, it's telling us it's 7 degrees Celsius outside over
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Does it show our winter storm warning that's moving in?
This is showing me Minneapolis. I don't know if I
Okay.
can narrow down the
Maybe it
like.
might be too soon because that's on the forecast, but
Yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa. Ladies and gentlemen, we got breaking news. So I was in Minneapolis. We're actually right now in the heart of Minnesota. So what it's showing me here, -7 right now, Celsius. So for y'all, that's like wow, your temperatures are kind of wild. Yeah, it does show the winter.
I will say you do warm up faster when you have your ruck on. So that is one benefit.
Let me find out where we're gonna start rucking in negative temperatures. I'm here for it. I like a good challenge. I didn't get a chance
Yeah.
to do one of the things I wanted to do on my bucket list this year, just because life has been lifing. But I could probably ruck, put some stuff in a backpack, and start messing around and mucking around and doing that. You
Yeah.
know,
What was on your bucket list that you didn't? I have to ask.
you know what? I'm gonna have to conquer it for 2026 now. I have a fear of water. Okay. So that's always been a thing. And I was going to do on the Toronto Island, I was going to get into a boat if it was just a day cruise just around the island or something like that, just to conquer that. But I didn't get a chance to just because life has been lifing. There's so much happening as a podcaster, creator, streamer now. Like it's wild. It's a lot of work. You know what I
Is a
mean?
lot of work. I don't think
For sure.
I don't think the general public always appreciates how much work it is, like behind the scenes, the editing, and there's a lot. Yeah. We were talking about lighting before just that one feature, like lighting and sound and everything is a lot. And then
So
technologies. Yes.
yeah, and I think this is something important that I started to incorporate into a lot of the podcast conversations now is we're all creators here, folks. So this is even a question for Kayla here that I would love to ask her is speak on your dietitian. So you have clients outside of that, yes?
Yes.
Right? Now you speak about the rocking aspect, but now putting all this together in its own pot to be a content creator, like how much time and energy are you spending into the content creation world?
Yeah. 8 now. I'm trying to recycle and repurpose, I'll say.
Smart.
So, for example, it's like maybe taking little blurbs from the book or, taking client examples because I feel like those client stories can really be what connects, I think, a lot of times with audience when they see somebody who maybe started out in the same spot where they are and then maybe fast forwarding to 2 or 3 months down the road and seeing the progress. So I do like to mirror like where I started with somebody. It doesn't always make it on social media, but I feel like when I do more of that storytelling, it definitely tends to, I think, land a little bit. But as a creator, I think it can feel like a lot. And I think just like keeping up with all of the trends, for example, or, oh, this trending audio or this idea, like it becomes like it seeps into all these areas of your life. And you're like, it kind of has, it can strip the joy out of something. So, for example, I find like when I'm cooking something, I was like, I should probably be filming this. Like I love to cook, but I'm like, now it's become a piece of content. And, I think sometimes just separating those ideas or having some boundaries around that is something that I'm still, toying with, because I think, if you get burnt out, your people can feel it. So you've got to keep it, I think, fun for you and also your audience.
And I feel like prior to recording this, you see that like because I'm doing a crossover. So podcasting is still going to be here. But coming into the actual world of like streaming now, it's quite interesting because a lot of streamers are talking about like, I got to show up, I got to put on a performance. And it sounds like it's performative, but a lot of the things is just being yourself. I think I don't like the word authenticity. I use it sometimes, but try to be the most authentic person you can. Folks can understand where you're coming from. They know that, listen, it is a job to show up on camera, is one. Two, it's a job to simply have a mic in your face and talk to brilliant minds and guests like yourself. The third part, and understanding technology is always not going to be fine. Or if you're watching the podcast and you look at my mic positioning, noticing this flipping mic keeps pulling itself down. It's not because of whatever. It's just the way the hell the setup is. And I got to tighten something with an Allen key, but we figure it out.
Right.
We figure it out.
Things,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. All the things that your job description now, like had you known when you first started, like do you think you would have started like knowing all the things and responsibilities that you're doing now?
That is like the $1 million question. And I love questions like this. And I just got goosebumps when you asked me that question. 9 years of podcasting is one. Two, I wish that, this is going to be so controversial, I'm about to say, when we were in the pandemic, right, the first 90 days, I wish I made the podcast around those first 90 days. Because I think that the rapid growth that you're seeing from creators in the pandemic helped a lot of people, right? Now, I'm not saying that I haven't been consistent since 2016 of doing this for the 9 years, but I think it would have hit different. Having that now, I have all that seasoning because I was never a video guy. Now we have the luxury of bringing video to the conversation. I was always audio. And Laura Di Benedetto called me out on a Zoom conversation. We've upgraded past Zoom now. We don't use Zoom anymore. We use Riverside FM. Shout outs to them. Cut me the check, by the way. I'd like that. Thank you.
Yeah, your referral link in the show notes. No.
Right, referral link, you know what I mean? All that good stuff. But no, with all that being said, and some brilliant platform now with Riverside, when you know all of everything and you now want to go position yourself as a creator, you've learned everything now, it hits different. It feels different. You're more polished. You're more refined. So I get to a point now where I used to read off of things, I still do, but nobody really knows if I have talking points. I just make it now over glorified coffee chat. If this is an in-person, in-studio conversation, over glorified coffee chat. I have my talking points. I know exactly what we're going into, but when you study your guest and you already know the premise of what you're going into, you pick up off of cues. Because I was never familiar with rucking. So I have already questions that I can say is, if this is just Starbucks, we're just sitting here chilling, vibing, we can make a whole conversation, which turns into content. You know what I mean? So that's just really it.
Yeah. And I'm curious, like circling back to what you said, like had you, like thinking about early pandemic, was it, like what was the pause there? Because you had already been podcasting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my question is like, just diving deeper, like going kind of all in?
I would have said that 100%. Yeah. I'd say
Okay.
go all in. I'd say
Gotcha.
go all in. I think if I was to start, say if I would have put on an extension in the pandemic, I think the scalability would have been astronomical because everybody was literally, what were they doing? In front of their phones or their computer screens or their TV screens, smart TVs, watching content and consuming things. And that's where the rise and boom is. Now creators are going to say, it's hard. It's hard. It's not hard. I'm going to be honest. Anything in life is going to be hard, right? keeping track of your diet, working out. It's all hard, but you want it. You got to have the grit to want to do it. And I think that's where a lot of folks get sidetracked, because now you see a lot of creators are like, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm not seeing the repayment of the dividends. But heck, if you're doing it for the payment, well, then why are you in the space? You got to build things. It's a slow build, ladies and gentlemen. Kayla, I'm pretty sure you can say the exact same thing.
Yeah. And I think so much more than, like, I think you're talking about like growth. I think that engagement is another thing too, like just getting people to engage nowadays. Like you could have a tight knit small audience, and that could, like, from a business standpoint, I feel like, you know, be just as fruitful as having 100,000 followers. I feel like just because there's so much noise, and just because I think you have a big following doesn't, one, make you credible, doesn't mean you're making money, doesn't mean you're making any sort of impact. So I think finding your people within your spaces too, and I think that can take time for sure.
I'll say this, all you really need in any space that you're in, I've talked to a lot of different people in different spaces. If you literally have 10 solid people, just know those 10 solid people have other folks that are going to, one, vouch for you, and two, are going to simply sit here and tap into what you're doing. It's just a no-brainer. You don't need 1.3 million to make a success statement or a success story, or 100K people. Like, I'll give an example like this. Let's start at 100K. You can have 100K followers on your Instagram. I can tell you right now, from a 10% perspective, you got to ask how many of those folks are going to be retention or holding retention if you were to sell a byproduct and they're going to buy from you. So that 100K, let's just say this. If I had 100K followers, I want to have at least 100 of that solid people, because I know at the end of the day, if I sell something at $100, what's going to end up happening? Right? I'm not no mathematician. I'm no Albert Einstein.
What's 100 times 100? Yeah.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
If you really want to make it about you, that's why I say to folks, start small to perfect big. You don't necessarily, that 100, I'll tell anybody this, doesn't matter if you have 100K followers. Those 100K followers are not tapping into your content. They're not all commenting. They're not all liking. Because if you did, you would shoot past the algorithm. You know what I mean? You know how many millionaires would be in this world if we literally had 100K followings per person? That's why when I see 100K or 50K or 20K, you're not making money. I know folks right now that literally have probably 1,500 people on their Instagram, and they're making six figures, scalable.
Well, and I think too, just the amount of work, like we were talking on the back end, you think of all of those responses, and, you know, when you have a big audience, it makes me think James Clear, he wrote Atomic Habits, like in one of his newsletters recently, he's like, you want the results, but you don't want the lifestyle. And I was like, ooh, that kind of, I know.
Love
right.
it. Love
So
it.
I was thinking of, like, just thinking of creators, like, you know, you're always like wanting to grow your audience, but then again, you don't want to pull up your inbox with 200 DMs to respond to. It's like, who wants to do that? You know? So I think, yeah.
I was watching a conversation, brilliant podcaster. I know we're going in a whole other realm, but I think
No, I love it.
This is the value that
Yeah.
a lot of our guests can learn from, and even our audiences, both audiences. Sean Kelly, young kid, he's about 23, 24. He had a conversation with another fellow podcaster, and the fellow podcaster said, listen, on Instagram, he doesn't make any money. He used to do speaking conversations, and then Instagram did some tight knit stuff where they've made it where, like, you gotta be careful of copyright. He said a lot of now what he sees with Instagram, it's DMs for like collaboration or connection pieces, or it's like a resume. Where he starts making a lot of his money is through YouTube. And that's why I said to folks, you gotta make that crossover. As long as you're in a mainstream point where you're talking about health or fitness, being a dietitian, or doing rucking and doing all these things, you're going to last, because it's information that's going to be able to continue to keep growing. So many folks are so worried about, let me build my TikTok, let me build my Instagram. Just find the platform you're going to stick on you feel is going to pay you the most. I'll give someone a number one hack right now. I can't even believe I'm about to do this on the show for 2026. If you're in the educational realm, Get into live streaming. Build on your YouTube, but then eventually take parts of that audience and come over to live streaming. Live streaming could be YouTube, could also be Twitch. If you want a faster ability where you don't have to do all the big setup, you have a studio, you have a camera, you have a mic, you can literally go on Twitch. Figure out the platform you're wanting to use and build your clients there. Bring your friends in there. Start having the conversations there. And I will tell you, over time, you'll see it built. It's clockwork, right? So you watch a lot of streamers. And I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine. A lot of folks that are in the gaming world, I like a little bit of video games. I make it a part-time supplement. But there's models, and I mean credible models, that are just gaming. And when you go to their actual Instagram, it's all their model stuff. It's their model of their brands that they're wearing. I'm not talking about those other type of models, folks, but you know what I mean. They're just there. They show that they're in Vegas or they're in Dubai and they're at dinner parties and doing this. And there's no video game stuff. Where's all the video game stuff? It's on their TikTok. But I ain't going to give too much more value because then y'all have to pay me for that. And I know y'all going to want to pay the price.
Yeah. No, and I think you're totally onto something with YouTube, for example, because I think there's just a lot of creator burnout on other outlets. And like now, what is it, the past few years, YouTube is actually outpacing Google for like how-to searches. It's like now when you think of how do I do this, you're not going to Google. It's like you're going to YouTube to find a video on it or asking ChatGPT maybe, but...
So you know what's so funny about this? And to give you some value, people don't realize this. YouTube is Google. It's all the same stuff. And YouTube is Google. It's a database. It's a search. Do I say this on the podcast? No, I'll save it off air. I can't give you all that information. If I give that information, folks are going to be like, yeah.
This is where you drop like your bonus episode, you know. That
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Come to the Twitch, y'all, if you really want to see this.
Exactly. There you go.
And, you know, fun fact, this conversation could have happened on Twitch if I thought about it. But Twitch has just been like a month development thing. Because eventually I'll be doing like live talking conversations where like podcasts like this are going to be live, right? So you'll get to see like when we say, let me crop that out, right? And you have those errors and the funny moments and this and that don't actually make the show. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. But Kayla, back to you. You know, I feel like with what you got going on, I'm definitely picking up a copy of the book, first and foremost. Please tell me there's an audiobook.
There is, yes. There is an audiobook. I did not narrate it, but I left that to the professionals. But there is audio, there's Kindle, paperback, whatever mode you like to read or listen to.
And that's all coming out on the same day?
It is. Yep, January 6th.
I love that. So I'll definitely, and like I said, you can hold me to this. I love supporting the creator. I truly believe that's a thing you got to do. Buying the hardcover, the paperback, whichever one is for you. And then obviously me, because I do so much stuff in the house or with traveling, it's getting the audiobook because I can consumption faster instead of like reading. Because like when you're reading something, you got to spend a lot of time doing that. When I'm in the audiobook, headphone in, move around my house, clean. Could be rucking. You know what I mean?
Yes.
See, she got ladies and gentlemen, you got to give her a follow.
Multitasking. Love it.
Got to give her a follow. I love it. But before we get out of here, plug again the book and where everyone can check you out on social media.
Yes, RuckFit is available for pre-order, officially launching January 6th. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, wherever you like to get your books. And you can follow me on Instagram, Kayla Girgen RD. Also on TikTok, I would say more active on Instagram, working on YouTube, so more to come there because my husband has been hounding me, so thank you for more of a nudge to really get more on there in 2026. So that will be, like you were doing some foreshadowing earlier, more to come on YouTube.
And hey, I'll say this as just even more extreme value. Consistency to all my creators out there. If you're an established creator, just be consistent. If you're starting in 2026, just be consistent. Honestly, even if you work a 9 to 5, take 1 hour out of that day. I know you can accommodate that into your lifestyle. Doesn't matter if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend. Doesn't matter if you have kids. the dog, the goldfish, the pet rattlesnake that you keep in the heating area of your house, whatever you're doing, you can spend that 1 hour, ideation that idea, take your iPhone if you need to, take a webcam if you need to, take the tripod and just shoot the content. Gary Vee said it the best. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just put it out there. Because one piece of content, you can streamline it 10 to 30 different ways.
And keep it fun, I might add. It's really easy to get caught up in trends or what everybody else is doing, but I think keep it fun because that's going to make it easier to be consistent too.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Never look at it with, I'm going in this with a price tag. Never go into it with all the wrong reasons. Don't look into it as monetary gain, because I'll tell you right now, the YouTubers I know, the content creators I know, it took them some time. And now they're making money hand over fist. You know what I mean? That's the end of the rainbow moments. You know what I mean? You deliver out to your audience, to your community, you get it back, coming back tenfold. And that's all I got to say. Mitchell Report Unleashed podcast. Kayla, once again, close us out, the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I am so happy to be here.
Yes, definitely. And we'll do this again. Maybe in person. You never know.
Yeah.
Especially if you come to Vancouver and
We'll compare temperatures. Yeah. Right? Is it -7? Is it -12? We'll choose the
parka.
The warm. Yeah.
You're going to need a parka, not a vest. But no, all jokes aside, I do appreciate you, and take care.
Thank you.